Welcome to the Seniors Rock Show, presented by the Law Office of Michael Robinson, PC, on News Radio Wham 1180. The Seniors Rock Show, a lively weekly discussion shining a bright light on aging with fun, entertainment, and important info for all adults. Join in with your comments or questions. Call or text 222-1180 or 1-800-295-1180. Now from the News Radio Wham 1180 studio in downtown Rochester, here's your host, Joanna Palvino.
Well, thanks for joining us. I'm Joanna Palvino, your host, and I will be joined shortly by my co-host, estate planning and elder law attorney Michael Robinson. So welcome to our Valentine's Day show. And to get you in the mood, our guest today is author and gerontology expert, Jennifer Fitzpatrick. Jennifer is here to talk to us today about older adults and intimacy. So if you've ever wondered what's normal as far as relationships go as you age, you're in the right place. Can you still be sexy at 60? We're going to talk about these things coming up. So, and I think in the meantime, we'll also crush some stereotypes too. So I think first we'll catch up with my co-host. He's over there waiting, and he's, again, an attorney. And, I was thinking this morning when he's an attorney and his work is all about relationships. And a lot of, obviously, a lot of careers do involve relationships. But his clients, they have to be able to trust and rely on him because he's an attorney. And to do the best he can for them, they have to trust him. So I think that at the law firm of Michael Robinson, that's a given. So I wanted to mention that with relationships being the topic today and say, happy Saturday, Mike.
Hey, Joanna, happy Saturday to you and happy day before Valentine's Day.
Thank you. Notice I have my red outfit on.
I see that.
They can't see that, so I wanted to mention it.
It's going to be an interesting show, too, to lead up to Valentine's Day. Looking forward to hearing from our guest. And, I'm so glad you brought up the relationship issue because you're right. With estate planning in particular, it is a very personal process, and people do need to feel comfortable with the firm they're working with because necessarily there's going to be some very personal discussions involved. And, every firm has its own personality. They have their own way of doing things. And so, what might resonate and work well with one client at a particular firm, maybe that's not the firm for someone else. They're going to be happier working differently, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, we always encourage people, you don't necessarily have to work with us, but just make sure you're working with somebody because this work is so important. And
yes.
But having said that, regardless of style and personality, there are some constants that really should be involved. And when you're working with an attorney, are they taking the time to really listen to you? And are they asking the important questions? And are they taking time to explain to you how your plan is going to work? Or are they just trying to move you along as quickly as possible? And in fact, just this past week, I met with a woman who had a will prepared for her several years ago. And after attending our webinar, she was alarmed that the attorney never explained to her exactly how the will would be administered upon her death. And that leads me to this week's myth of estate planning. So the myth that I want to address this week is a will avoids probate. And in fact, this is one of the most common myths that we encounter. But the truth is, if you are using a will to pass your assets at death, you're not avoiding probate. In fact, probate is required. And there's actually, there are two main steps in the probate process. First is to prove the validity of the will and appoint the executor. Because until a judge determines that the will is valid and formally appoints the executor, no one has legal authority to deal with the assets in the deceased person's name. And we have seen many situations over the years where families have gotten themselves into trouble because they started using and distributing the deceased person's assets without having legal authority to do so. And this part of the process begins with preparation of a petition to be filed with the surrogate's court, asking for the appointment of the executor. Certain family members are required to be provided with a copy of the will and to sign a document agreeing to have the executor appointed or to appear in court to say whether they agree with probating the will. And then once the judge is satisfied that all of the procedural requirements are met and that the will is valid, the judge issues a formal order appointing the executor. And that order is referred to as letters testamentary. And then the second phase of the probate process can begin, which is the identification and marshaling of the decedent's assets, paying bills and creditors, filing certain reports with the court, and then ultimately, of course, distributing the decedent's assets according to the provisions of the will. So there's a lot of moving parts to this probate process. And as an old farmer I knew once said to me, the more moving parts there are, the more likely one of those parts is going to break down. Also, when a married couple incorporates estate tax planning in their wills, you are forcing not just one, but two probates to happen, one upon each spouse's death. And finally, if you own real estate in another state, your family then has to go through probate in that other state as well. It's what we refer to as ancillary probate. So the basic point here is no, wills do not avoid probate, and that is a very important point for folks to understand.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Mike. As usual, you're educating us on some very important things. And you mentioned the farmer, and I know last week we got a call from someone about farmland that was in their will, and you answered that question. So it reminds me to tell the listeners that we're live here today, folks. If you have a question for Mike, please do call, and the number is 585-222-1180, and you can call 1-800-295-1180 as well. And of course, we're available on the iHeartRadio app. And if you have questions during the week, or you want to give us some information or suggest a topic for a future show, you can always send a comment at seniorsrockradio.com. And there is a link there to Mike's website as well. So, Mike, I bet you have some stories related to the kinds of things that you're telling us today about these myths. Do you have any stories about a client without actually mentioning a name? Anything that you can share?
Oh, sure. And again, things come up, fairly recently. We met. It wasn't this past week. It was a couple of weeks ago. I did have a conversation with someone who did exactly what I just mentioned. No executor had been appointed. No one had legal authority to be handling the person's assets. People were taking assets. They were, taking money, trying to do things with the real estate. And those are the sorts of things that do get people in trouble. And if it's an honest mistake, sometimes it's correctable, but oftentimes, whether it's honest or not honest, people run into tax issues, they run into criminal law issues, and it just illustrates the importance of making sure you're working with someone who's going to guide you through the process, because it can be rather complex.
Absolutely. It looks like we have a caller here. Sue has a question for you. Mike, you want to take that?
Sure. Hello, Sue.
Hi, Mike. My question is, well, I have two questions for you. Do IRAs with named beneficiaries, do they need to go through probate? And my second question is, what are the pros and cons if you have an IRA of naming revocable trust as a beneficiary? And I'll hang up and listen to your reply.
Okay, Sue, thank you. Two great questions. So the first question is, if you have an individual named as the beneficiary of your IRA, whether it's a spouse, a child, a friend, whomever, then that would not have to go through probate. That would just pay out to that beneficiary, basically because of the contractual beneficiary designation. One caveat to that is if that's a minor beneficiary, then actually you are going to be looking at a court process, because if they're a minor, legally the IRA cannot pay out to them. Second question is the appropriateness of having a revocable trust named as the beneficiary. We do that very often. There can be many advantages, including creditor protection for the beneficiaries, incapacity management for the beneficiaries. Those are just some of the benefits. But the key, again, is that that trust is drafted appropriately so that it will qualify as a designated beneficiary under the Internal Revenue Code. And there are specific provisions that need to be in the trust in order for it to qualify. But yes, properly drafted, oftentimes a revocable trust is an ideal way to make a beneficiary designation.
Thank you, Mike. And we have another caller here. Elizabeth is on the line. Sue, I hope that answered your question.
Hello, Elizabeth.
Hi.
Hi, Elizabeth.
My husband
Are you
and I
on a
live
speakerphone, Elizabeth?
I'm sorry?
Are you on a speakerphone?
Yes,
Can you take that off possibly, or are you driving? Don't do it if you're driving.
I'm driving.
Oh, okay. Well, go ahead. Shoot the question.
My husband and I live in New York. When we had our will created, we were living in the state of Alabama. Is there anything that we need to do or be aware of to make sure that we've covered all bases and everything is copacetic?
Boy, another great question, Elizabeth. Thanks. And you may be just fine, but it is, I think, worth having an attorney look that over for you, and not only look it over for you, but have a conversation with you about what were you wanting to accomplish with that will. What, other than the fact you've moved to New York, what else has changed in your life that may require some adjustments. But simply the fact that it was done out of state, that does not invalidate the will.
Excellent. Thank you. I will do that.
All right, you're welcome.
Okay, folks, stay tuned. That was great. We have some questions. Feel free to call when we're up in a few minutes after the break. And if you want to call Mike anytime, you can call his office at 374-5210. But hey, we're here today, so why not? Stay tuned. We got some love coming up.
In these uncertain times, we're all concerned with protecting our family's legacy and hard-earned assets from nursing home costs, unnecessary taxes, and the expense and delay of probate. At the Law Office of Michael Robinson, P.C., we've spent over 34 years helping families just like yours preserve their wealth and leave a lasting legacy for those they love. Register for a free educational webinar to learn how you can protect you and your family. mrobinsonlaw.com. That's mrobinsonlaw.com. Joining us, I'm attorney Mike Robinson, here with host Joanna Pelvino on the Seniors Rock Show. Please feel free to call us if you have any questions or comments at 585-222-1180 or toll free 1-800-295-1180. And producer extraordinaire Pam will be happy to take your call. And if you're new to the show, we are here live every Saturday from noon till 1. Today, of course, we're getting ready for Valentine's Day, so we had to ask that age-old question, what is love? And scientists in fields ranging from anthropology to neuroscience have been asking this same question for decades. And it turns out the science behind love is both simpler and more complex than we might think. We do know that much of love can be explained by chemistry. So if there's really a formula for love, what is it and what does it mean?
Well, those are a lot of questions there, Mike, but I did a little research, and according to a team of scientists at Rutgers, romantic love can actually be broken down into 3 categories. I'm not going to quiz you. I'm just going to share. They are number 1, lust, number 2, attraction, and then attachment. And if you're wondering what each of these categories, how they're characterized, it's kind of interesting because each of them they're all sets of hormones that are coming from, where do you think, Mike, your favorite place? The brain. And the first one is lust, and that is obviously an evolutionary basis, and that stems from our need to reproduce. That's not a big surprise, and it's shared among all living things. We all need to continue our species. And the second one, attraction. or a total eclipse of the brain, as I like to call it. That's the one that involves, if you see someone that you're attracted to and, you start stammering and you can't talk and your palms sweat, your heart starts thudding in your chest. And, it makes sense that for centuries, people thought love and most other emotions for that matter really arose from the heart. But as it turns out, love is about the brain. So if that's a surprise, it shouldn't be, because it's what makes the rest of your body go haywire. It's controlling everything, right? So attraction, while we can certainly lust for someone we are attracted to, and vice versa, one can happen without the other. Attraction can make us, giddy and silly and energetic and euphoric. And you can even be so in love that you can't eat or sleep. And that is because attraction seems to lead to a reduction in serotonin. And that's the hormone that's known to be involved in appetite and mood. So it makes sense. But not last but not least of these three romantic, we'll call them love categories, is the friend zone or attachment. And attachment is the predominant factor in long-term relationships. So while lust and attraction are pretty much exclusive to romantic entanglements, think friendships, parent-infant bonding, social cordiality, and other of intimacies of those sorts. So in a way, attraction is much like an addiction to another human being. So it's similar. Did you know, Mike, that the same brain regions light up when we become addicted to substances as when we become emotionally dependent?
Actually, I did know that, and all of that science is quite fascinating. And I also wanted to talk about sometimes the downside of love. But before I do that, I know we do have another question on the line, and I want to make sure, Peggy, we can get to your question. How are you this afternoon?
Oh, good. How are you? Thank you so much for taking my call. And you guys really have a great show, so thank you.
Oh, thanks so
So
much.
I lost my dad a few years back, and for whatever reason, I got curious about the estate, and the estate is still open, has never been closed out. And I just wondered what that means when the estate is not closed out.
Well, it could mean any number of things, Peggy, and thanks for the question. There could be some open issues that have not been resolved.
But 12 years?
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
12 years it's been open.
Oh my goodness. Well, it's unfortunate, but you're not alone. I've seen many estates drag on for that long. It could be just somebody's dragging their feet and not attending to things that need to be attended to, whether it's the executor, whether it's whoever's representing the executor. But my goodness, there certainly doesn't appear to be a good reason for the estate to be open for 12 years.
And everything was paid out immediately. There's been nothing else. Does that mean that if, God forbid, something happens, somebody could come back at the estate if it's still open?
That is a possibility. Yep. So I would say, give us a call. I'd be happy to talk with you more about that and try to explore why it's actually dragging on for so long. So feel free to give the office a call, 374-5210, and we'll figure out a time when we can have a quick chat.
374-5210?
Correct.
Okay.
Thanks for
Thank
calling,
you so much
Peggy.
for taking my call. Oh, thank you for taking my call. Have a great day, guys.
You too.
And we'll be right back with our guest, Jennifer Fitzpatrick, and 60 and Still Sexy. So stay tuned to News Radio Wham 1180 and the Seniors Rock Show. Effortlessly healthy meals are fresh, fully prepared, ready to eat, and hand-delivered. As a senior, I appreciate the 10% discount, and I love the never-frozen big variety of heart-healthy meals I get to choose from each week. Effortlessly Healthy is locally owned. Meals are perfect to send to a senior loved one. Just heat and eat. Effortlessly Healthy, delicious food, convenience, and a 10% senior discount. Stay healthy, stay happy, and stay home. ehmeals.com, ehmeals.com, 585-254-00. We're listening to the Seniors Rock Show, and now we're at the part everybody's been waiting for, apparently. I'll tell you, Mike, this topic has gotten a lot of attention this week. It's raised a lot of interest, let's say. And I think it's funny because it's been very quiet interest, like, oh, what time is your show again? Or is your show on Saturday? And I think it's funny because it just shows me that, this topic of sex and being older and is taboo in our society. Nobody wants to think about grandma having sex. Well, we're going to enlighten you now. And it's funny because it's so taboo, but everyone apparently wants to hear about it. So we have with us today Jennifer Fitzpatrick. She is our guest, and she's the author of Cruising Through Caregiving. And it's called Cruising Through Caregiving, Reducing the Stress of Caring for Your Loved One. And that's about caregiving, obviously. But today, this long-time gerontology instructor at Johns Hopkins University is going to be talking to us about love. And Jennifer's been featured in national media, such as the Wall Street Journal and Reader's Digest, and she's been on national television. And Jennifer tells us that when she's not doing those things, she spends her time as and I don't believe this, Jen, below average first mate on a boat. So we'll hear about that later too, hopefully. But please join me in welcoming from Kent Island, Maryland, Jennifer Fitzpatrick.
Hi,
Jennifer.
Joanna. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you today?
Good. Happy Valentine's weekend.
Thanks so much. Same to you. Hope you get a lot of love.
Yeah, absolutely.
And speaking of love, I think people are waiting to hear what you have to say about this. So let's start with, I guess, the basic question. Can older adults still experience intimacy?
Of course, older adults can experience intimacy. It's a great myth, as you said. People want to hear about this topic. People are interested to know, can they be intimate as they age? But a lot of people are afraid to ask those questions or afraid to look into it. So yes, they can be intimate as they get older. Is intimacy necessarily going to look the same for somebody who's 80 as it, say, does for somebody who's 18? Probably not, but intimacy is absolutely available to people of all ages.
Absolutely. And sexuality is important, right? For self-image. And that doesn't matter if you're before or after 60.
Absolutely. So when we age, we still have that identity of a man or a woman or a straight person or a gay person, whatever, however you identify. And that's part of you. That's part of how you identify who you're attracted to, who you might like to flirt with. When we talk about intimacy, Joanna, I think it's important that it's not just about sex. People think about intimacy and it's like, oh, yeah, well, maybe you're not having sex as much as you used to as you get older. But that said, there are a lot of people that their sex lives are really ramping up as they get older. So exactly like you said, it's part of your identity as a male, a female, a woman, a gay person, a straight person, what have you. And who you're interested in, who you find to be compatible with in your golden years, and whether you're in a couple or whether you're single.
It makes sense. And, intimacy doesn't just mean the act, right? I mean, we talked earlier today about, these hormones coming from the brain. And so tell us more. What's normal as we age as it relates to intimacy? What would you call normal?
When we get older, as we age, everything in our body is changing, as you alluded to. And you said, yeah, the brain is that computer that controls everything in our body. So, for example, and a person who's 50 years old, they're going to, if you're a male, you're going to take more time likely to achieve an erection than an 18-year-old. This does not necessarily mean that there's impotence, but what it often means is that somebody who is in the middle age or the older age group, they require more foreplay. And this, especially for straight couples who are around the same age, it seems like for men and women, they're a little bit more on the same page. Both enjoy foreplay a little bit more. As we get older, there's been studies that have suggested that our orgasms are less intense than if we were younger. We might have less frequent orgasms. Maybe if you were able to have multiple orgasms as you age, you're only able to have one. But that does not take away from the joy of sex. And really, as we age, one of the big things that we know about all aspects of aging, not just sex, not just memory, but it's use it or lose it. So for women in particular, and I think women oftentimes, they struggle sometimes asking their doctor about sexuality, especially if they're older, especially maybe they're widowed and the doctor assumes that they're not sexually active. But ways that you can use it or lose it if you're not sexually active in terms of having a partner is regular masturbation and taking matters, for lack of a better word, into your own hands. And that really helps to reduce what we call that that the issue of urogenital atrophy, where if a woman is not sexually active for a while, as she gets older, it can often be very painful. So you either want to be sexually active, or you definitely, if you haven't been sexually active in a long time, you want to use a lubricant as you age, or again, masturbation.
Well, thanks for squashing some of those stereotypes that we all have. That when you're older, men can't do it, and that women don't want to do it, because it's all a stereotype for sure. And I agree. I think as you get older, there are less responsibilities, like kids in the other room, and you don't have to go to the garage or anything. And,
I like that. But that
wait,
can
did I
spice
say
things
that out
up
loud?
too.
No, but it's true that you have more private time, and you don't have to worry about getting pregnant, right?
Well, I do want to back up a little bit, because I want to be clear. There are some people that truly can't. There are some men, as they get older, that they have health issues, maybe related to diabetes, maybe related to medication that they've taken. There's other health issues. So there are some people sometimes that maybe they can't get an erection, but most people, as they age, if they want to, and if they use enough foreplay, they absolutely can. So, yeah, but what you just said about not getting pregnant, now the one thing I want to remind everybody about, Joanna, is if you are an older man with a younger female, you really want to remember that men can almost always impregnate women. So
Good. I forgot about that
old.
part. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't care if you're 80, if your partner's 40, if she has not completed menopause, you still need to be mindful of birth control, unless you are ready to have a pregnancy. So, and I think people, people that, they assume that they're done. There's no way that I could get pregnant. So that's a big caveat. You have to always remember that that's a possibility when you're dealing with a relationship where the partners are of different ages.
Of course, those are great points too. And you brought up the doctor, and I was talking to Mike earlier. It's interesting that doctors don't seem to talk to older adults about sexuality, and so many maybe are widowed or have gotten divorced, and they have been with one partner for a lot of years, and now they're out playing the field again. And I think it's really important for doctors to bring those things up to make sure that someone's going to be protected from STDs and STIs. And I'm curious what you think about that, because I myself am in this situation. My doctor has never asked me anything about it. And I think it's really interesting. And now my doctor is younger than me, so it's probably a little awkward for him. Or maybe, like you said, he thinks I don't do it. So what do you think about the doctor
It's so interesting that you say that, because I don't think most primary care docs spend a ton of time talking about senior sexuality. That said, most of the time, the older adult, they are seeing their primary doc more than any other physician. They might not have a specialist yet at age 60 or 70 or 80. So I think we have to try to be less shy. When you go to the doctor, you've got to think about that person is there to support you. You're their customer. Yes, you're their patient, but you're their customer. And you have to go in with expectations. What do I want help with? What is it, losing weight? Is it something to maybe control my heartburn, as the commercial just said a few moments ago? Is it something about increasing vitamin D, or is it about protecting myself from STIs? What would be the best thing for me? Or is this, what do you recommend in terms of ways to keep...
What you love will help you get there. Genesee Valley Physical Therapy.
Hi, I'm Dan Geen, physical therapist and owner of Genesee Valley Physical Therapy. And daily, I'm so humbled by the great reviews we get from our patients, like this one.
I'm John. I'm a professional firefighter, a scuba diver, a musician, and a granddad. Firefighters are industrial athletes, and over my 26 years at it, I've had opportunity to injure myself a lot. I really can't say thank you enough to Genesee Valley Physical Therapy for making sure I can get out there and keep living life.
Thanks for the great review, John. And folks, please remember, you don't need a referral to see us, and we adhere to strict CDC guidelines and even offer telehealth visits if you prefer. Call us or visit GeneseeValleyPT.com today. There's a convenient location near you, including our newest location in Pittsford at the Bushnell Basin office building.
Do what you love will help you get there. Genesee Valley Physical Therapy.
Before you travel, get a fast and reliable COVID-19 test from Same Day Testing in Fairport. CDC approved, hassle-free, help stop the spread. Get tested today at Same Day Testing. Visit sameday/testing.com to book your appointment.
Oh,
Grateful Dead song for the day. Thank you to Mike and Pam. And welcome back to the Seniors Rock Show. We're here with Jennifer Fitzpatrick. We have a few more minutes. Boy, we need more time for this subject, so we'll have to have you back, Jen. And we're talking about 60 and still sexy. And yeah, it's good news for us. So, Jen, I don't want to end the show without talking to you about how, we're in a very different time, obviously, right now. So how can older adults stay connected? And, how can you date during a pandemic? Do you have any advice for us?
Well, absolutely. Everybody has different risk factors and everybody has different comfort levels, and every state is different. And I know New York is pretty strict. But what I would say is right now is a great time to be doing online dating, because there's really not, as long as you can do Zoom, you do face-to-face. And the reason that I say that, and it's not ideal, life should not be lived completely on Zoom. Zoom is not meant to replace real-time interactions. However,
Agreed.
If you meet with somebody online and you connect with them, don't buy into the nonsense of, we can only chat online. Do Zoom calls. You can see their facial expressions. You can get a sense of their personality. And I got to tell you, I've been married to my husband almost 21 years, and we met at a wedding in a city where neither one of us lived. We sort of fell in love over the phone. We didn't see each other in person that much at first. And so so I think it's possible to do phone calls, to do Zoom calls. It's not a replacement. Please believe me, I know that. But it takes off the pressure of getting too sexually intimate too quickly, which I think a lot of people can be shy about, especially as they're getting older. So I think it can be a silver lining of this insane situation. It's an opportunity to get to know somebody. Please do not just chat. Do not deal with anybody that's asking you for money or anything like that. If they're not willing to talk to you on the phone or do Zoom, I think especially Zoom or Skype is ideal. But try that. And that said, there are still people, Joanna, that are dating in person, that they're meeting for coffee in the towns that have coffee shops open. Just be mindful of your risk factors and what makes sense for you given your age and your other comorbidities.
Terrific. Yes. And, it's funny because I think that you can actually get to know each other better before you start seeing each other. I agree. And thank you for all the things you brought up today. And I wish we had a lot more time. We don't. But before
have me back anytime. You're the best host.
I'm sorry?
You're a great host. Have me back anytime.
Oh, thank you so much. But don't go yet, because I wanted to know what kind of boat you have. You were talking about being the first mate. And we have a friend, Hank, who's a skipper, and he's on his way right now down the coast with a yacht from Rhode Island to Charleston. I'm worried about the weather, but I wanted to know what kind of boat you have.
So I wrote a book called Cruising Through Caregiving, and I use boating analogies because my husband and I like to boat. Of course, the book is about caregiving. But the joke of it is we've been boating for 12 years, and my husband's an awesome captain, and we joke I am the world's worst first mate. I really am. I try.
I don't
I'm
believe
just
it.
not
I think
good at it.
I know a few others. But listen, give your contact information, will you, Jennifer Fitzpatrick?
Absolutely. If
You're
want
wonderful, and we'll have you back soon. But go ahead, give it.
Free chapter of Cruising Through Caregiving, go to cruisingthroughcaregiving.com. You can find the book anywhere books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, etc. cruisingthroughcaregiving.com.
Excellent. Thanks so much. And Mike.
Thank you.
Be well, be kind, and happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Seniors rock.